you don't play the position perfect. You know, I played a long time. I'm in the Hall of Fame. I went to Super Bowls. I won MVPs, and I never played the perfect game.
Pro Football Hall of Fame quarterback Kurt Warner joins us to talk about the strong relationship he has with his son and Temple quarterback E.J. Warner.
And this interview just so happens to come on the same week as his son E.J.'s best performance in a Temple uniform. We'll highlight the USF win.
And it wasn't just E.J. I'm Sam Massad, live outside the practice facility at Edberg Olson, and we'll talk about the Owls' dominant run game as well as what worked on special teams. Inside the Nest is live, and it starts right now.
Hello and welcome into a new edition of Inside the Nest. She's Emily Cochran and I'm Luke Milai.
The Owls have been waiting for this one. Temple's best chance at a conference win at home versus fellow cellar dweller USF. It all worked out well with Temple's high-scoring game in about 3 years.
It had been 399 days since the Owls last won a conference game, heading into the matchup with USF. In the first quarter, that streak looked like it could continue. Travis Marsh finds Xavier Weaver for a 10-yard touchdown to put the Bulls ahead 7-0. Meanwhile, Camden Price put the foot in football for the Owls, kicking 3 first-half field goals to give Temple the 9-7 lead. But here's the man of the afternoon. Edward Sadie takes this one 33 yards and gets the Owls into the red zone where they finally get into the end zone. Darvon Hubbard caps off the drive with a 4-yard touchdown, his first score since week 2 against Lafayette. But the Bulls respond quickly. 2021 All-American kick returner Brian Battie takes this kickoff 48 yards to the Temple side of the field. A shoestring tackle keeps him from finding the end zone, but it only delayed the inevitable. 4 plays later, Marsh finds Weaver for his second touchdown, making it 16-14 Temple heading to the half.
And into the second half we go. On the first drive of the third quarter, E.J. Warner pitches to Sadie. He finds a wide open route, taking this one 75 yards down and burning USF secondary. This was his first of 3 rushing touchdowns on the day. On the Bulls' next drive, Jimmy Horn, the same guy Stan Drayton was raving about in last Monday's press conference, says, "I can do that too," taking this one 55 yards down for a USF touchdown. Temple with the ball again. E.J. hands it off to number 23, and Sadie breaks the tackle in the backfield, books it 40 yards down, stiff arms the safety, and hurdles into the second rushing touchdown on the day. Still in the third quarter, the Owls go no huddle, and E.J. completes to, look who it is again, Ed Sadie for a 61-yard gain to end the quarter. Into the fourth now, E.J. Warner drops back and finds Jose Barbone for a 21-yard deep ball. And a few drives later and another touchdown later, the Owls now end up 47-28. Sadie again rushes in for a 27-yard touchdown. Temple wins its first conference matchup, and they win big, 54-28.
The day belonged to Edward Sadie. He set new career highs in carries with 23, rushing yards with 265, receiving yards with 69, and touchdowns with 3. Sadie's dominance allowed the pass game to flourish as well. E.J. Warner set a new career best with 344 passing yards. Camden Price was perfect with 4 field goals. He's now 10 for 11 on field goals this season. And although it only counted once in the win column, Stan Drayton was quick to mention how much this one meant to his team.
And this really does feel good for them to get a win, to kind of tap off some of the hard work that they've been embracing as a football family, and sacrifices that they've made along the way is just so well deserving for this football team at this point. So,
I mean, I know I had to do my job, just stay composed, trust my whole line. They was doing a hell of a job the whole time. So, I just believe them and trust them and just stay patient. And then when they open up, hit it.
Pass game opened up. It all started with our up front and the run game. Once we run the ball well, ran for as many yards as we did, it makes stuff easier on the back end because they can't just tee off on us. Know they were going to pass the ball, and then our receivers just executed out there. They ran their routes, they caught the ball. I just had to get it to them and let them make plays.
Normally we discuss these games on our own, but today we've got a man who saw it up close and personal.
We're joined by captain, single-digit, and offensive lineman Adam Klein. Thanks for coming on, Adam.
Yeah, of course, guys. Thanks for having me.
Now, Adam, this week you guys outscored USF by 24 in the second half. It's the second straight week you guys have won the second half. How much of a focus has it been for you guys playing complete games?
Honestly, I know Coach Drayton has preached from the start that we want to be able to have a fast start in every game. And, sometimes, that's not always going to happen in a football game. But, he always preaches that we got to keep straining up front, especially up front, but and the entire offense and defense and special teams. Everyone's got to keep straining for every play for 6 seconds. And, we got to continue that from the first half into the second half. And I think we've done a really good job of that the past couple weeks.
And this game was the first time in at least 50 years that you guys didn't punt or turn over the ball during the entire game. How has your style changed from that UCF game a couple weeks back to this most recent game against USF?
I think a lot of it is just execution. I think beginning of the year we were struggling, to, up front put a body on a body or, finding the right looks that we wanted to on offense. But I think a lot of it is just, I think the coach is doing a really good job with play calling. A lot of it is just, execution. And I think you saw in this game, a lot of it was just we weren't running anything really different. It was just us, playing a little bit better or, playing for a little bit longer on plays that ended up becoming more explosive plays. See guys like Sadie scoring touchdowns, Donis with the one-handed catches. So it's guys just making extra plays that, help us get to that W.
Now, this is one of your most dominant wins under Coach Drayton and his staff. What's it been like playing under them, and what's the culture been like since they've come to North Broad?
It's been awesome since Coach Drayton's been here. I was one of the first guys to try to get to meet Coach Drayton, being a local guy around here, so it was easy for me to come see his first press conference. And from the jump, I knew he was a great guy, and I knew not only was he going to make me a great football player, but a great man off the field. So that's the biggest thing about Coach Drayton culture. It's not just about making you the best player on the field. It's about making you the best person, the best man you can be off the field for in the future when you have your own family and stuff like that.
And Ed Sadie had 334 all-purpose yards. That's good enough for fourth in Temple football history. What has your connection been like with him on the field, especially since you're a leader and a captain on this team?
Oh, it's been awesome. I love Sadie. Sadie's a great guy. We talk every single day, so a lot of it is just having that trust between O-line and the running back. So, sometimes there might not always be the biggest hole there to run through, but, Sadie's done a really good job of just trusting us play after play. And as weeks gone and, keep watching film over and over with us and, just to keep pressing that hole. And he's done a really good job of just, I can't even say enough, just trusting us, and it's really hard to do that when everything's not always looking great. So, I love Sadie. I love the confidence he has in us, and I'm just excited to see what we can do for the rest of the year.
All right. Thanks, Adam, so much for joining us today. And speaking of Edward Sadie, we'll be hearing his name a lot today thanks to the 265 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns he had on Saturday.
Inside the Nest reporter Sam Massett is live at Edward Golson Hall to discuss one of the best rushing performances in Temple history. Hey, Sam.
Hey, Luke, the offense flipped the switch for Temple this past weekend. For an offense that sits at the bottom of the conference, you wouldn't have known it on Saturday with records being broken left and right. Passing, run game, and special teams, each phase started to show some life against the Bulls.
It was a record-breaking afternoon for the Owls in South Philadelphia this past Saturday. Temple snapped its 4-game losing streak over the 1-7 Bulls, leaving South Florida to be the only winless team against the American.
Quite honestly, it's a mindset. It's a mindset. When your number's called, are you going to make that play? And a large percentage of the time, our guys made plays when the numbers were called.
This was a step in the right direction for a Temple offense that struggled almost the entire season. E.J. Warner had his best game of the season, throwing for 344 yards and 2 touchdowns. An outstanding run game as well. The Owls had not had a running back rush over 70 yards yet this season, but redshirt sophomore Edward Sadie changed that. He rushed a total of 265 yards, which is also his career high. The last time this happened was all the way back in 2018.
This game has statistically been one of Temple's best in a while. The team racked up 621 yards altogether. The Owls put up 54 points, the most since Bucknell in 2019, but also the most USF has given up in a single game this season.
And then there was special teams. Graduate kicker Camden Price broke not only a career high, but a school high as well with 18 points. Price was also named the American Special Teams Player of the Week.
it's been nice to get back on the field. I haven't kicked in a game since 2019, so it's been nice to kind of live out my dream and write my story again.
Temple's next game against Houston starts that 3-game streak of opponents who are all over 500 and sit at the top of the conference. We will see soon whether USF was a glimpse of what's to come, or was it just another outlier for the Owls? Reporting live from Edinburgh-Olsen, I'm Sam Massad. Luke and Emily, back to you.
Thanks, Sam, for that analysis on Ed Sadie. Now let's talk about the guy handing the ball off to number 23. ITN reporter Jake Gable joins us to give a quick breakdown of E.J. Warner's performance so far this season.
Now, Jake, last week we saw E.J. set a new career high with 344 passing yards. It's the second straight week that he set a new career high. What do you see from him against USF that's made him so effective lately?
I mean, this was the most poise and confidence I've seen from EJ this season. It's hard to remember, but 2 months ago, he was the third-string quarterback. He turned 19 last week. He's so young and already has so much talent. He's consistently gotten the ball out quick all year, but this time he's been hitting his receivers in stride, especially in this USF game, and I think that has to do with his added confidence as well as his chemistry growing with his receivers. But let me show you guys what I mean. So let me set the scene. We're looking at Temple. It's fourth quarter, start of the fourth quarter, and it's 33-28, Temple in the lead. Before we look at the play, let's look how USF's defense is matched up. You got 4 rushers, 3 linebackers, 1 high safety. Now, we're going to play it right here. Watch those linebackers. Jordan Smith motions. We're going to pause it right here. And as you see, those linebackers shift to the right with him. And you see Victor Stofel. He's the right tackle. He's pointing at that guy. E.J. Warner, he's eyeing down the same linebacker that went with Smith. So that leaves Jose Barbone at the bottom of your screen, one-on-one, that high safety we talked about earlier. There's no way he's going to catch up with him. So we're going to play it. And then as you see, E.J. takes the snap, pause it right there, and he looks one way. He didn't look at that left side of the field. He looks straight at Jose Barbone because he knows he has his guy and he trusts him in that one-on-one situation. Play it throughout, and you'll see he throws it up high, up top, where only Jose can get it for the touchdown. We'll watch it one more time, and as you can see, Jordan Smith motions. You see those linebackers move with him. EJ, one read, look, touchdown, 6 points for the Owls. And Luke, Emily, I got a little jealous. I wanted to get in on the play breakdown fun, but now it's your guys' turn.
That's great, Jake. Thanks again. We have some play breakdowns too. Let's take a look at this one. E.J. Warner hands the ball off to Ed Sadie, and Sadie makes the first man miss, takes this one 40 yards down the field for his second rushing touchdown of the day. Let's take a closer look at this one. We'll pause it right here. You can see that this USF defender is already on Sadie right here, but he does a great job at staying on his feet, shedding the tackle, and you can play it again and see that he gets into an open field position, and with one man left to beat, boom, look at that stiff arm right there, right into the end zone for his second rushing touchdown of the day.
Now, I'm so glad you picked Edward Sadie because it was his day, but he made life easier on everybody else, and this is an example of that. You can play it right here. E.J. Warner fakes the handoff to Sadie, throws to the end zone to Adonicus Sanders. That's a heck of a catch. A little celebration afterwards as well. But now, let's pause it in a second. E.J. Warner goes to fake the handoff to Sadie, and you can see with how effective Edward Sadie was, over 260 rushing yards, there are 8 guys in the box bearing down on the run. That means there's one defender up on Jose Barbone, one on Adonicus Sanders, and one safety that's got to pick between the two. E.J. Warner does a nice job putting this ball. You can play it right here. Adonicus Sanders has to beat one man. He's too good to be guarded by one man, makes the one-handed catch, and that just shows the balance, how important it is, and how Sadie's effectiveness opened up the game for everyone else. So we're up against our first break, but when we return, we'll check in on Stan Drayton's weekly press conference.
We'll also look ahead to Houston, the team that was projected to win the conference this season. Inside the Nest, we'll be right back. Welcome back. Stan Drayton's Monday pressers often consist of what went wrong in AAC play. Finally, with a conference game in the win column, Drayton touched on what went right.
He had a lot to say on what the win meant to his guys, his quarterback's confidence owning the offense, why the Owls have finished games better the last 2 weeks.
We want to be a team that is willing to play hard for however long it takes, and that is something that has to be practiced. That is a mindset, and to say that we're all the way there, I would be lying to you. We're not. This is something that we're trying to grow to, and to me, that is what Temple Tough means. Is that you withstand the fight for however long it takes. And there's a strain that goes along with that. Can you play hard when you're exhausted? Exhaustion can make the strongest man weak, but if you have the proper mindset to fight through it, strain through that, you'll find out that you can do so much more when you let the mind control the body as opposed to the body controlling the mind. And it's human nature. We all fight it, even in this room. And but this is something that we are working towards as a football team, and slowly but surely our guys are really buying into that theory. Sadie, starting to, Sadie in the offensive line, starting to really get the run game going, things of that sort. Just how we are developing as an offense is allowing us to stick to EJ in that position right there. And, we're always constantly, practicing what plan B can be. There's always a chance that you can lose a player during the course of the game, and we have to be ready for what plan B looks like. But no, right now.
That was part one of Stan Drayton's presser, and what'd you take from it?
So Stan said that EJ has been throwing with way more confidence, and that's the main reason why he's been getting 100% of the snaps within these last 3 games instead of incorporating Quincy Patterson into the mix to run the ball. He also said that this offensive line and this run game has really been improving so that EJ's potential can show more on the field.
Now, something that he also mentioned was the Owls playing more consistently and finishing games, finishing plays better. We heard it when Adam Klein was up here just a few minutes ago, how the Owls are straining for 6 seconds, giving that extra effort, blocking on the outside, even when you don't have the ball. That's something that's been really important for this team. I mean, we've seen Temple be on the wrong end of a lot of explosive plays this season, but when you're playing through the end, you're adding those extra seconds of effort. That's when you get explosive plays. So we saw the Owls on the right side of it, a couple big runs for Edward Sadie, a couple of big passes for E.J. Warner. And Stan also said exhaustion can make the strongest man weak. I mean, he wants his guys thinking about the mind over the body, not letting the body control what's going on. If his guys aren't exhausted, again, they're more likely to play just as hard as they did in the first quarter when they get to the fourth quarter.
Absolutely. And now we'll move on to part 2, where Drayton addresses Houston's defensive struggles while also highlighting one of the strongest quarterbacks in the conference.
I can't say is our men, they know wins don't come easy. They've been fighting, scratching and clawing, and exercising resilience and just persevering through a lot of tough times. And to get a win and get that taste back in their mouth was something that was really, really good. The way we did it too, right? Just, offense playing their part, defense, bending, not breaking, and then special teams with Camden Price putting 18 points on the board. It was a really good team win, and confidence build moving forward for our guys. And, I think the one thing that they won't forget is the feeling of victory, and they absolutely won't forget the feeling of defeat either. Trust me, Houston's got some good defensive players, on that team, but, there's an element to when you're scoring fast on offense and you're putting your defense on the field, there's a balancing act there of how much you're exerting your defense because you're scoring fast on offense. And you know what? There's a lot of ways to try to skin that cat. Clayton is the real deal. He is the real deal. I expect him to show up, and be the guy that all the stats say that he is, and we're going to do the best of our ability to try to keep him off schedule, try to disrupt his.
That was part 2 of Stan Drayton's press conference. Luke, what did you take from it?
I thought Stan Drayton was very polite when he was talking about Houston's defense. I mean, he wouldn't put them in a bad light, even though they're giving up 36 points per game. That's bottom 10 in the country. He used a reasoning you don't hear too often. He said their offense is so good and they score so fast. That's why the defense is always on the field. They're tired. We've heard it the other way with Temple, where the Owls have gone 3 and out so many times that the defense is out there so much. But talking about how good the offense is, you don't hear that too much. This is a bit like the Chip Kelly Eagles, where they were going no huddle. They were scoring so fast that the defense was so bad. That's kind of what Stan Drayton did here, and you don't usually hear that type of reasoning for a bad defense.
And Stan also talked a lot about this Houston quarterback, Clayton Tune. He said specifically in the pressers, I think out of the 11 that we've seen from him, he never names the opposing team's quarterback. And he said Clayton Tune is the real deal. This guy keeps his offense on the field for long periods of time to get the job done. And as you mentioned, Luke, with the exhaustion, this can often exhaust defenses. So Temple's defense is going to need to be prepared to be tired, prepared to be exhausted, because this Houston offense is the real deal.
Well, straining this week is going to have to be so important, straining as Stan Drayton puts it, playing the extra down, playing the extra second, because you mentioned Clayton Tune is so good, and Houston's just so good overall offensively. We've seen this Temple team play against good offenses before. They played against Tulsa. They played against UCF. Now they've got one of their biggest challenges of the season against this Houston team led by Clayton Tune. And from one quarterback to another, Emily and I had the chance to sit down with NFL Hall of Fame quarterback and the father of E.J. Warner, Kurt Warner. The two-time NFL MVP had already drawn attention on North Broad when his son committed to Temple. But when the true freshman took over the starting quarterback role in Week 3, Kurt's guidance has been a talking point for E.J. Warner.
In our discussion with Kurt, he talks about the difficulties and the balance of being a dad and a coach in EJ's life, and how he never misses an opportunity to watch his son play on game days, no matter how busy he is.
We'll take a look at how far away he is from being a Hall of Fame quarterback trying to turn into a Hall of Fame dad, when Inside the Nest continues. Welcome back to Inside the Nest. When an NFL Hall of Famer says he can talk to you on Zoom, you drop everything and open up your laptop. That's what Emily and I did last week when we had the opportunity to speak with E.J. Warner's father, Kurt Warner.
Kurt was kind enough to carve out 25 minutes of his busy day to speak with us about his relationship with E.J. on and off the field, while highlighting the development of his son's leadership skills as a young quarterback in a rebuilding program. What is it like for someone who has dedicated his life to the game of football to be watching your son on national television?
It's so much fun. It's been fun, kind of growing up in that world and watching actually both of my boys that are playing in college now fall in love with the game in different ways at different stages, play different positions. And so to be able to use your expertise and to help them chase their dream, it's been fun. I'm sure from their standpoint, there was some undue expectations that were laid on top of both of them as they were playing. But it's been fun to watch them thrive and have these opportunities and, follow something that I love so much. And it's been a fun ride.
Now, I want to know, what's it like for you as a dad watching these? Are you nervous? Do you talk through the TV? Well, what's it like for you taking it all in when you get to watch these games?
Yeah, I get very nervous, especially with EJ, because my older son plays wide receiver. And so for whatever reason, although I'm nervous when he plays, it's not quite the same. When you have the ball in your hands on every snap and every decision that's made is left up to you. And because I think I know the position as well. So when I watch EJ, I'm very nervous. So along the way, you try to enjoy it. You try to appreciate where they're at.
He always looks like such a level-headed guy.
That just makes me beam from ear to ear. I'm just so happy we had the opportunity to do that. After watching back what Kurt had to say, Luke, what did you take from it?
Well, first, Kurt was a great guy. Very thankful that he gave us some time to talk about his son. But I want to go into what Kurt talked about with EJ and talked about his decision-making. His decision-making and his level of play for his age are beyond his years. And Kurt looked right at himself. Kurt is a Hall of Fame quarterback. And he said he could not play and process things at the level that EJ does this season when Kurt was this age. And you got to remember, so much is going wrong around EJ Warner. I mean, injuries, injuries everywhere, just a bad team around him, and he has stayed composed the entire time. He's shown how much of a leader he can be at only 19 years old, as Jake mentioned earlier in the show. Last week he turned 19. This is a guy that leads by example. He leads in the film room. He leads with his voice. I'm very impressed with what EJ has done as a leader off the field, considering all the issues that are going on around him when he's playing the most important position on the football field.
And you talk about age. Again, he's a 19-year-old kid running a team of 20-plus-year-olds. And that is something that Kurt Warner said that he would have never been able to do at EJ's age. And we know EJ is just a guy who's always in Edward Golson Hall. He's always putting the work in. He's watching film 24/7. And when I asked Kurt if EJ gets that from him, he said not necessarily. If he's being honest, he tells EJ to watch less film so he has more time to be a kid, more time to be a college kid, more time to just have fun and have a social life here as a student on Temple's campus. So it's very important that Kurt Warner not only pushes him to be his best on the field, but he also pushes him to balance everything off the field as well.
Yeah, you talk about fun, but I can't imagine it's too much fun watching these games in the Warner household with how nervous Kurt said he gets when he watches EJ. He mentioned his other son, Cade, at Kansas State. He's a wide receiver. Kurt obviously wants him to succeed, but he doesn't know the position back and forth like he does as a quarterback with EJ Warner. And with EJ, I mean, he's so nervous. He wants him to play the perfect game every week, but obviously you can't play the perfect game every week. Kurt wants EJ to be the best that he can be, and right now EJ's, I think, played above how well he's been surrounded by. Now, EJ's work ethic and maturity will be on display again this week as he gets to know this Houston team through watching film. But to help us get an understanding of the Cougars, Emily and I spoke with Joseph Duarte. Joseph reports on the Cougars for the Houston Chronicle, and he knows his stuff. This is his 10th season covering Houston football. We'll hear from him after the break, and we'll also take a look at some of the big names in this high-powered Houston offense.
Inside the Nest will be back in just 90 seconds.
Welcome back to Inside the Nest. Stan Drayton said Monday that the team will never forget the taste of victory after last week's win.
The Owls finally got it done, their first AAC win against the USF Bulls, but can they do it again? Temple will be far away from the Nest and up against a Houston team that set all sorts of records this past weekend against SMU. And here it is. The SMU Mustangs score first in this back-and-forth matchup. But just 3 minutes later, it's quarterback Clayton Tune using his feet to take this one into the end zone for a 55-yard Cougar touchdown. And just 2 drives later, and Houston with the ball once again. Tune throws a 12-yard pass to redshirt freshman Sam Brown for another 6 points. With the game tied up, and at the start of the second quarter, SMU quarterback Tanner Mordecai throws a 35-yard deep ball to number 10, Dylan Goffney, to put the Mustangs up 28-21. The Clayton Tune interception gives the ball back to SMU, and it's tight end R.J. Maryland right here who completes this connection. Just moments later, Tune throws a 37-yard bomb to Keyshawn Carter. Now in the fourth quarter, Mordecai has time in the pocket and throws a perfect 43-yarder into the hands of Moochie Dixon for a grab inside the 5 and another Mustang touchdown. It was that kind of day. The final score was 77-63 SMU. This was the highest scoring regulation game in FBS history.
Now, the stats from this game don't even seem real. Houston quarterback Clayton Tune accounted for over 600 of the 710 yards of offense for the Cougars. He threw for 527 while also rushing for 111. 3 different Houston receivers had over 100 yards receiving as well. The only plus from this game for Temple is that those 77 points are now the most given up in a single game in the AAC this season. That surpasses the 70 the Owls allowed in their trip to Orlando against UCF earlier this season.
Now, these stats bring us to the present day for this Houston team, a program projected to finish at the top of the conference, but instead is sitting at 3-2.
Now, Emily, this is a very deep conference this year, but there's still no one that can stop this Houston offense, specifically wide receiver Nathaniel Dell. The junior has 73 catches and 919 receiving yards this season. Now, it's already good on its own, but you got to factor in that's over 40 more catches and over 400 more yards than his next closest teammate. The SMU game, he tallied 180 yards and 13 catches. He's already one of the best in the conference. He's got one of the best throwing to him.
Now, starting quarterback Clayton Tune is also a huge threat on this offense. He's taken home 3 of the last 5 AAC Offensive Player of the Week awards, and for good reason. He's completed 68% of his passes on the year with help from all-star receivers like Nathaniel Dell, like you mentioned, that he can easily connect with. Tune has thrown for over 907 yards just within Houston's last 2 games. Pressuring him is going to be hard, but the Owls need to make it happen. With some more insight on this Houston quarterback, Joseph Duarte spilled all his knowledge on the 5th year's experience and versatility during this week's edition of Behind Enemy Lines.
He told us, despite having an elite offense, if this Houston team's going to put together a winning streak, it's going to have to be on the back of one of the worst defenses in the country.
Maybe defensively, they weren't as good as many people thought they were going to be. They lost a lot of talent to the NFL, and that's sort of kind of been the story of the year. They just hadn't been able to close out games, and then you mix in some key injuries, and it's just, it's taken them from being the preseason favorite to right now, after the latest loss, looking on the outside in the conference race.
This is a Houston team that was projected to finish at the top of the conference this season. They've already got a pair of conference losses and 4 losses overall. What's led to them struggling a bit more than a lot of people expected?
Going back to the beginning of the year, their first game was a 3-overtime win at Texas San Antonio. Then they had a 2-overtime loss at Texas Tech, and then they had a loss in overtime to Tulane. So they've had to really go the distance and some in a lot of these games.
So Clayton Tune is a huge threat under center for this Houston offense. As a senior starter, how has he developed throughout his college years?
The last 4+ games, he's been among the best. He's coming off of a 570-yard, 7-touchdown game against SMU and lost somehow. When you score 63, but you allow 77, those things happen. These last 5 games, if you put them all together, he's been as good as they come.
The Owls are. That was Joseph Duarte of the Houston Chronicle. Luke, what did you take from that?
I think when you look at this Houston team, they were projected to finish at the top of the conference this season. And I think when you look at this team, it's an example of maybe they got too big in their heads. They thought that they were going to be better than they've played, and I think that got in their heads. He mentioned it. They had a couple of overtime games in their first couple of weeks of the season. Those are the games you're supposed to win. I mean, that's when Temple brought up wins against UMass and Lafayette. Those are the games that any good D1 program are supposed to win. And Houston lost one, went to overtime in the other. I think now they've just been rattled from that point on. They kind of thought they'd cruise a little bit more. They've had some close games, and then obviously anytime you give up 77 points, that's going to get in your head as well. So I think this is a Houston team that is still very talented, but they're probably expecting to be a little bit better than they are, and that's what's gotten in their head.
And something that surprised me was that he said that this specific defense is the best that Temple does at getting to the quarterback right away. They said he was kind of sugarcoating this defense a little bit for me, but he was pretty much just saying how Houston is going to really need to be prepared for Temple, which is something that was kind of a shock to me.
Now, when we talked to Joseph and asked him what his score prediction was, he had Houston 38-31, and I think we both agreed that was a little generous, putting Temple at 30 points again, but I think that just proves how bad the Houston defense is. Maybe he's being a little nice after Temple put up 54 on USF, but if the Owls are going to score 30 again, they're going to have to do things right in some key areas this week.
And that's the cue to bring out that toolbox. Luke, start us off.
All right, my first tool is to limit the Cougars' run game. The Owls have allowed over 200 rushing yards in 4 straight games. I know we've talked about how great this Houston passing offense is, ranking 15th in the country, but we've seen this recipe before. When the Owls overcommitted against a great Tulsa passing attack, they lost the game with bad rush defense. They allowed almost 300 rushing yards in that game. They'll need to play balanced defensively on Saturday to hang in this game with the Cougars.
And tool number 2, offense, to pick up where you left off. This was the first game since October of 2020 to feature a 100-yard rusher, receiver, and 300-yard passer all in the same game. EJ was firing left and right. Sadie was unstoppable on the ground, and Jose Barbone has looked the best we've seen all season. Keep establishing the run game, continue building connections with the receivers, and protect EJ. Do this, and you have a shot at staying competitive.
My third tool is for special teams to keep being special, and not the special teams as a whole, specifically kicker Camden Price. Price scored 18 points last week with 4 field goals and 6 extra points. He's only missed 1 kick since taking over for Rory Bell in the Memphis game. With how often the Owls struggle to finish off drives in the red zone, Coach Drayton can continue to rely on Price to be automatic, not come away from good drives empty-handed.
And last tool for today, cornerbacks, be ready to work. Houston's passing performances have been incredible this season, especially in the team's last matchup against SMU. Clayton Tune threw over 50 times for 527 yards and 7 touchdowns. This game looked more like a basketball game with the way these teams were scoring on each other. However, Tune also threw 3 interceptions in that matchup. This could give the secondary a chance to change the game. Now, the Owls finally used all 4 of our tools last week, but on November 12th, we'll see if they do the same down south in Houston against the Cougars. Kickoff is set for 3 o'clock, and you can stream the game on ESPN+. Make sure to follow along at Owl Sports Update on Twitter and Instagram for updates before, during, and after kickoff.
We're up against our final break of the day, but when we come back, we'll go no huddle, and we'll bring it around broad with Jake and Sam as we get some more score predictions.
Records have officially been shaken up. Inside the Nest, we'll be right back.
Welcome back to Inside the Nest. Before we wrap things up, it's time for us to squeeze in a couple more plays before the clock runs out.
That's the definition of no huddle, and it starts right now. Question 1. How would you rate Stan Drayton as a head coach so far this season?
I think when you factor in he came into a clear rebuild with a team that had just fired its head coach, I don't put too much stock into wins and losses. He's won the 3 games that Temple should have won with UMass, Lafayette, and now USF. The culture is most important. Guys are giving effort and competing for their coach no matter what the score is this season. That's something we didn't see in 2021.
And we talk a lot about the culture of this program, and I think Stan Drayton has brought it back to life this season. His players respect him, and they want to play hard for him. This is a rebuilding program, and wins won't come within the blink of an eye. When the Owls lose, Drayton's optimistic attitude is crucial when it comes to keeping their confidence alive. That buzzer threw me off a little bit right there.
All right, question 2. We're crossing over to basketball here. Will Temple men's basketball win more games in November than Temple football wins all season?
This is a perfect segue into men's basketball. Overall, between these 8 games in November, but of course Monday nights are always what a perfect segue into basketball season. I'm going with Temple Hoops. Aaron McKee has barely had to rebuild this team at all, and the Owls are projected to be competitive this season with a lot of strong talent returning to the court, including Zach Hicks, Damian Dunn, and formerly injured Caleb Battle.
Yeah, after that big Seahawks win last night, I don't think I can go with men's basketball. I'm going with a tie. The football team, I think they've won all 3 games they'll win this season. Men's basketball, they've got to go 4-2 the rest of the way to break that. I'm going 3-3. I'm going with a tie.
Absolutely. And now it is time to look at our record score prediction for this week. As you can see,
last week, 3 of us correctly picked Temple to win, but no one saw Temple putting up 50 points and blowing the Bulls out of the building.
Jake leads with a 9-0 record. Luke and Sam are tied up at 8-1, but I'm back at the bottom once again, trailing with a 7-2 record, sadly.
Emily, you got to get back in the win column this week. So how about you start us off?
I'll start us off, but I'm not changing my answer. It's going to be Houston for me, 38-24. Clayton Tune and this Houston offense will likely exhaust Temple's defense. Plus, South Florida was Temple's best chance at winning a conference game, but I don't think they can pull off 2 straight.
I'm going with Houston in this one, 31-24. I've been critical before of this Houston team on this show because they have a bottom 10 scoring defense in the country, allowing over 36 points per game. But I think the Owls keep it close because of those struggles, but ultimately Houston's talent on offense will put it away. Now, Sam, how are you feeling about this game?
USF was big, but I don't think it'll be enough to take down the Cougars. I'm going Houston 36-28. It's hard to go from facing a team that was at the bottom of the AAC to one that stands near the top. However, Temple's offense did show some signs of life, so that makes me believe that it's going to be a high-scoring game. Jake, what do you think?
I'm going with Houston in this one, 35-23. Houston just scored 63 points in a game and still somehow lost by 2 touchdowns. So it's safe to say they can score and don't have the best defense. I don't see Temple's offense keeping up with this one.
That's all the time we have on this edition of Inside the Nest.
He's Luke. I'm Emily. We're out. Have a great day, everybody.